Good day to you. God bless you. I'm Pastor Dan, and welcome to Bible Doctrine. Back in our Father's Word, the book of Leviticus, chapter 11. This chapter 11, I'm going to continue where we left off in my last lecture concerning clean and unclean animals. So we're going to have that word of wisdom from our Father. In Jesus' name, Yeshua the Christ. Amen. And let's get right into it, and we're going to pick it up with verse 27. Verse 27, Leviticus chapter 11, and it reads, "And whatsoever goeth upon his paws among all manner of animals," the word is beasts, but that word means animals. I'm just explaining it in easier terms so people can understand. "That go on all four, those are unclean unto you. Whoso toucheth their carcasses shall be unclean until the even." So, whatsoever goeth upon his paws, this means like anyone who walks on its paws, like a dog or a cat or a bear, a lion, anything that walks on its paws, it's unclean to you. Verse 28, "And he that beareth the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. They are unclean unto you." In other words, like say if one of those animals died, like say if your dog dies, you pick him up and carry him to bury him. He's unclean to you. Why? Because that animal's carry disease. So you must wash so you can clean yourself and know that you won't get those diseases because you're cleansing yourself. That would be unclean if you carry a dead animal. Even if you touch one, that's unclean. Verse 29, "These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth. The weasel," this would be like a groundhog, "and the mouse, and the torso after his kind." The tortoise would be like a ferret. Verse 30, "And the ferret, and the camelon, and the lizard, and the snail, and the mole." So all these things are unclean to you. Verse 31, "These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever do touch them, when they be dead, shall they be unclean unto you." In other words, if these things are dead and then you touch it, it'll be unclean unto you. Verse 32, "And upon whatsoever any of them, when they are dead, doeth fall, it shall be unclean, rather it be any vessel of wood, or raiment, or skin, or sack, whatsoever vessel it be wherein any work is done. It must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until even, so it shall be cleansed." In other words, this is talking about, if you see anything dead, that falls upon, like Like say if you see like a river that's streaming, and then if you see like a dead rat or something in there and you pick it up, it's unclean unto you. Verse 33. And every earthen vessel whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and ye shall break it. In other words, what I was talking about in that last verse. Like say if you see something like in the water or on the ground, and one of these dead animals like a mouse or things of that nature, if you pick it up, it's unclean unto you. Verse 34. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh, shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk, and every such vessel shall be unclean. In other words, if you're eating something and something like something falls in it, like a dead animal or so, if you see something falling that you're eating on your plate, and you pick it, you shouldn't eat that plate because it's unclean. Same thing with a drink. If you see something in your drink that's dead, perhaps a fly or an insect or anything of that nature. If you see anything in your drink, you don't drink it because it's unclean. Verse 35. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass faileth shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges, for parts they shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you. So in other words, like the swine, if you cook like a swine in the oven or on a pot or in ranges or anything in that nature, it's still unclean unto you, because you shouldn't partake of that stuff, for that stuff is unclean. Verse 36. Nevertheless, a fountain or pit wherein there is plenty of water shall be clean, but that which toucheth their carcasses shall be unclean. Now this is something that would be, like if you see like if you see a stream of water and something, and if you see like it could be anything, like a raccoon or a dead thing, the water is always clean because the stream keeps streaming. But as soon as the person touches that thing that's in that water, he becomes unclean. But the water is always clean. But the person who touches that carcass to take him out of that water, he will be unclean. Verse 37. And if any part of their carcasses fall upon any swawing seed, which is to be sworn, it shall be clean. But if any water be put upon the seed, and any part of their carcass fall therein, it shall be unclean unto you. And this is all referring to that same subject I was talking about. If anything, if anything should die, and if you see it amongst these things, And if you touch it, you become unclean. That's why you must wash, so you don't get that disease from that dead animal. 39. And if any beast, meaning animal, of which ye may eat, die, he that toucheth the carcasses thereof shall be unclean until the even. Now this would be, even if the person eats, and if that animal is dead, it'll be clean unto him. And he that eateth of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. He is also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Now this is someone who carries the dead animal. In other words, they're carrying the dead animals on their shoulder. An animal that you're not supposed to partake of. But it's still unclean because they're touching that dead animal. That dead animal brings in disease. So they must wash themselves. Verse 41. And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. That means everything else that creeps upon the earth, it shall not be eaten unless that animal has a split hoof, cloven-footed, and chews the cud. That's the ones you partake of, such as the cow, the deer, the lamb, anything that chews that cud and has that split hoof and has that cloven-footed is the animals you can partake of. And it's the same thing as the water. The only thing you can take of the water is the things that has fins and scales. Everything else in that water, you leave it alone. That's there to clean water, not for a person to partake of. Verse 42. Whatsoever goeth upon the belly, and whatsoever goeth upon all four, or whatsoever hath more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them you shall not eat, for they are an abomination unto you. That meaning everything here that's on earth except for the things he told you to eat is an abomination. Remember what he told you. God commanded Moses to go to the children of Israel to warn them about clean animals and unclean animals. Clean and unclean. Because back when Moses went to bring this to the children of Israel, they were all heading to go to that promised land. So God didn't want them to partake of these things. Verse 43. Ye shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall ye make yourselves unclean with them, that you should be defiled thereby. Now this is like I was just referring to, because back in the time of this writing, they had foreigners living with the Gentiles. I mean, they had foreigners living against the Israelites. So if the Israelites, because this was sent down to the children of Israel from Moses. So if any of these Israelites participated in what these foreigners would do, foreigners is anyone who ethnic people, the Gentiles, because the Gentiles, they love to eat this kind of stuff. So God was just telling Moses to go down there to make sure that they don't do the same thing that the Gentiles do, because they were going to cross that promised land that God promised Moses. Verse 44, for I am the Lord, all uppercase Yahweh, your God. Ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and you shall be holy. Now this is talking about the children of Israel now. For I am holy, neither shall you defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Verse 45, for I am the Lord, all uppercase, Yahweh, that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt, to be your God. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. Now this is referring to the house of Israel now. This is referring to the tribe. This is referring to the whole tribe of Israel, because they had Gentiles living among them then. Verse 46, this is the law of the animals, and the fowl, and of every living creature that moveth in the waters, and every creature that creepeth upon the earth. Verse 47, to complete this lecture and to complete this chapter. To make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beasts that may be eaten, meaning the animals, and the beasts that may be not eaten. So he's talking about here, this last verse is about the animals that he said that you can eat, and the ones that you can't eat. Like I said, the animals that you can eat are those who have split hoof, cloven-footed, and chews the cud, such as the cow, the deer, the lamb, anything in that nature. That has the split hoof, cloven-footed, and chews the cud. That's what you partake of. It's foods like that to keep you healthy. If you start messing around with unclean food and unclean animals, that's when you get sick. And you don't live too long, because, back then, the Israelites, they lived a long time, because they didn't partake of that stuff that he advised them not to partake of. So stay away from swine, and stay away from anything in the waters, except that has fins and scales. Everything else, it will make you sick. I hope you enjoyed this book of Leviticus, chapter 11, concerning God's food laws, as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you for watching. And one more thing before I go is this. You stay in His Word every day, and it is a good day. Regardless what comes upon you, it's still a good day. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.